Yeah, great opportunity to be home. It's awesome anytime you're playing the United Supermarkets Arena, playing a fantastic opponent, coming off of a great learning experience in Brooklyn. Northern Colorado, I think, is a well-coached team. Coach Smiley's done a tremendous job. They've played a good schedule, played Colorado in a really close game. Obviously, Washington State's had some success. They've got a good team. So we got our hands full, and it'll be a great opportunity to play.
Coach, I know that you talked about before you guys went to Brooklyn needing more practice time, and what has this week done since you guys have gotten back and the learning experience that you're talking about?
Yeah, we needed practice, and we just went through a 4-week stretch where, not having Elijah and Christian practicing kind of put us behind just the ability to go up and down, and there's nuances to this game. I mean, there's a physicality that it takes, but there's a flow that you need to get into. And to compete at the level that we want to defensively, we've got to play against each other. And so that way we can improve. And we just went to a stretch where we were just managing, honestly, practices and trying to make sure nobody else got hurt. And it put us behind, and it showed, I think, especially in our first game against St. Joe's early. I mean, defensively, we just allowed too many catch-and-shoot threes that put us behind. And we've got an awesome team, but we've got a long way to go. And I think we need games and practices to continue to improve. And this will be a great opportunity to test ourselves and see how much improvements we've made.
Well, you mentioned the learning experience. What did you learn about your team out in Brooklyn?
I think the biggest thing is can we win games when we don't shoot it well? And to be a great team, you have to find a way to win it with defense, and you can't always plan on making a bunch of threes. And then how do we get to the free throw line? How do we continue to put pressure on the paint? We've got enough talent, and I've got to do a better job as a coach of just making sure we've got the right guys out there with a plan, and played a lot of different combinations at times, and you could tell our lack of experience together cost us some. I mean, there wasn't a great flow to a few possessions with what we were doing, and then the last thing probably I learned was, man, we've got a team that's extremely capable of being a great defensive team. But playing this game without fouling and getting in better condition where we can be physical longer in possessions, we needed to stretch that reservoir of depth and our ability to guard longer.
How much of it, you mentioned practice time, but game situations, you really haven't had your full assemble of the top 9 guys healthy at the same time yet? Is that just kind of the process of trying to get to that point at some point?
You know these early season games are important. They're all important. There's not a game that you don't look at and go, well, we're going in every game trying to do everything we can to win the game. But there's also a process to this where we need to get experience together, and you got to put people in different positions. And it was clear that we lacked some experience with some lineups. And I made some mistakes too in putting lineups out there that weren't as effective as we needed them to be. But man, we had great film coming back. We've had great practices since we've been back, so that's really been the positive.
It kind of looks like the corner 3 was kind of open for the opposition on the defensive end. How do you kind of clean that up going forward?
Part of that is rotations. I mean, we gave up some transition baskets that were corner 3s, and that's communication and fatigue. I mean, you see those possessions, and when we gave them up, and then we'd been out there for a little bit with the same lineup for foul trouble reasons, and then part of it is our communication in the middle of the floor and being able to guard ball screens. And the more effective that we are at communicating and being physical, and we drop the ball in that area.
You mentioned the depth in the defense and maybe some of that stuff inside as well. You got Federico back there. What have you liked, even though I know you would like to see him out there more, but what have you liked and what do you think he needs to work on?
Oh, man, Federico's such an awesome teammate. And Fede is a great defender, and we need to play him more. And we need to find an opportunity to get him more minutes. And, playing he and JT together at some point would be something that I think needs to continue to be an avenue that we find some time for. But, he was out a game, trying to get him back into practice flow because he was in such a good rhythm prior to that and felt like he was where we needed him to be to kind of take that next jump. So that setback hurt him, and getting him confident again, because when he's confident offensively, then he's really awesome. And he's such a great lob threat, but he's also got some skill and feel to get to the next action. So Fede's a huge part of what we do defensively, but I think a lot of it depends on his ability to play the game confidently offensively.
Coach, with this Northern Colorado team, it's a coach that I'm sure that Coach Linder is familiar with, and I'm just curious about, the scout on this game, if it's another team that you guys are pretty familiar with, because it seems like all year it's been those kind of teams.
Yeah, no, Coach Smiley, having worked for Coach Linder and took over at Northern Colorado after Coach Linder left, we're familiar with him. He's a guy that I consider a friend who, we do have a lot of respect for. Their team is well drilled, and they've got a good plan, and they can bait you into playing the game a certain way. So we are familiar with them, but also you're playing against a lot of personnel that is different. So a lot of these games are personnel driven as much as they are scheme driven, and you got to make sure that you guard the personnel the right way, and that doesn't matter who the coach is. But they do. They have got a great plan on both ends, and we've got to attack inside out and do a good job on some actions that they run that we feel like causes a lot of teams problems. Obviously, Colorado beat UConn, and they took them into a double overtime game, so they've got our attention, and we know we have to play great in order to win.
What did you see from JT in his 18 rebound game from your point of view?
Well, he's got an elite nose for the basketball, and he's an elite rebounder, and JT really was upset after that St. Joe's loss, and that's, I think, as a coach, he played well. So by every measure, you could walk into that locker room and go, hey, I played pretty good. And he was the most upset in the locker room. That's the thing I love about JT right now, is he's playing this game to win. And he didn't score it well against Syracuse, but I thought he made some strides going in the right direction. We got to the end of that game, and he did make some plays. So he didn't let maybe the negativity of how he was scoring the ball early in the game impact the way he finished the game. And he stepped up and made a couple of free throws at the end of the game against Syracuse. So I just love his fight to win. But obviously he's a great talent. His nose for the basketball is as good as anybody I've seen. I mean, he really is an elite rebounder. So we know we have high expectations for him to continue to have those kind of nights.
And what did you see from Darion kind of bouncing back in Syracuse like that? Because he had a couple tough ones that just didn't go down for him, especially at the end against St. Joe's like that.
Yeah, Darion, aka D5, he's a winner. He wants to win, and that game really bothered him that he didn't finish the game. And it could have went both ways against Syracuse because he got in foul trouble in that first half, and we did have to sit him. And it wasn't like he was just in a complete flow. And man, I thought his composure level to come back from a disappointment like he did on Thursday to play really composed, and I thought he was on balance, and he made some great defensive plays too. He was a good rebounder. I mean, we showed a couple of wall-ups in the game that I think he's making strides, and if you ask me any place I think we need to continue and improve is how can Darion play this game physically without fouling, because when he's in foul trouble, it costs us. It really hurts us. So how do we keep him in the game? And he's getting better, and he's embraced that, and I mean, I've been thrilled with his effort on that end.
What's impressed you so far about Christian as a freshman that he is?
Yeah, no, Christian has really embraced getting coached and wanting to be better, and he cares about winning, but he also works on his game and will spend whatever time's needed in order to improve. And, I think it's obvious to see that he can make a real impact on this team, and the more experience he gets, the better he'll get, because his heart's in the right place, his effort's in the right place, his work habits are there, and his feel for the game's there. Just needs more experience at this level to understand the nuances, and we need experience as a team to learn what the different lineups are that are beneficial. But man, I love having Christian on this team, and he's really made huge strides.